Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. We are back to talk about some fun things, the usuals, wounds and scars, all the fun stuff. But before any of that, I want to introduce our podcast. We are a podcast that covers a variety of topics from faith, enneagram, being third culture kid, navigating adulting, and a lot of brain dumps. Before we get into the meat of the episode, hi, my name is Yehna.
I am Jessie, and welcome to our 24th episode of
At
At
the
the
table.
Table. We are coming out of just such an amazing interview with Sarah, and Yena and I are feeling just so inspired and
So
so
inspired.
encouraged by the interview we did. So we are on a roll here. Today, we are going to talk about wounds versus scars, which is something that we were inspired by from my church's kind of like Lent devotional. We're
Yes.
towards the end of the 40-day Lent
And
season slash series. So my pastor posts an episode a day. It's like an 8 to 10 minute devotional that he posts. And as soon as Yena listened to this, she sent it to me immediately. And she's like, you need to listen to
this
today's.
is so good.
It was so good and just so relevant to what Yena and I are going through and talking about. So let's unpack that. We're going to talk about wounds versus scars and what that is,
Right.
kind of relating it to our podcasting so far and thinking through like what content do we put out there, and then it also relating to our TCK experience.
Mm.
So Yana, can you explain to us, so basically like wounds, you need to show your wounds and you need to share your scars.
Yes.
So what does that mean for wounds, Yana? Can you unpack this, and can you
Yes.
unpack that for us?
So with wounds, it's those open scars that are still very tender. It hurts when someone pokes at it. You might not be quite ready to talk about it. It's something that you're still pretty ashamed of. I mean, that's a strong word, but yeah, ashamed of. And when you do talk about it, it comes out maybe aggressively you're not very clear on how to express it in a way that is not biased, and you may come off as very defensive. And these are things that you are having a hard time even pinpointing how to start healing from it, because it just either clouds your mind or something you've put off for so long that you don't even know is there. But something this pastor has really encouraged us with the wounds is that we would be open about it and we would talk about it more and more, not use it as a tool to give advice. No, that's dangerous, but really as a starting point to say, hey, I cannot fight this battle alone. Please
Mhm.
stand next to me and listen to my story to help me now move forward from what's hurting me. So
Mhm.
that is what the wound is.
And I want to point out that wounds can be something that's happened recently in your life.
Mm,
Maybe it's like a friendship loss or a breakup or a something happening in your job or maybe a death. It
mm-hmm,
could be recent, but it could also be things from the past that you have just not let it heal.
mm-hmm,
So again, it could be relevant right now, but it could also be something from your past that you've just been hiding for so long and it hasn't become a scar. Again, wounds, you need to show it, and scars, you need to share it. And that was the whole point of that devotional. But for scars, they've already healed, like you've done the work to process it or overcome it, or and that's awesome. And because they're scars, like when you touch it, it doesn't hurt as much, or you're able to kind of share about it. But a lot of the times, you still might want to hide your scars. You might
mm,
be shameful or feel guilty about your scars that you have from your past. But those are the exact stories that you need to share with your community. You need to be open about to encourage other people. And a lot of the times, we don't know what we're comfortable with sharing or what we're ready to share, and to compartmentalize it like that of, okay, wounds might be something that I'm not ready to share or have a clear perspective on, but scars, there's something I've overcome and I've been through and I've done that, and I am able to use my story to
mm-hmm.
encourage other people. And so that was a good way of putting it, and it was so clear for both Yana and I, and inspired us. So then, Yana, with podcasting so far, we've it's what, episode 23. I
I
mean,
know,
we
that's crazy.
recorded a whole gamut of episodes from sharing about food and like Christmas and all that light stuff to sharing our TCK story and talking about Wheaton and talking about a lot of our hurts. Like there's a whole range we've covered. What does it look like so far with those wounds and scars framework?
This has actually been on my mind outside of just this devotional. And I think the devotional really kind of jump started the ability to think about this more clearly and with a little more conviction. And with every episode, especially the ones where we talk about the healing journey and a lot of our past stories and what we've overcome, I think when I do that and I share and I do it with such conviction and confidence, there are definitely parts of me where I think, okay, but was that too much? Was that a lot? Or am I maybe accidentally throwing someone under the bus? Or have I hurt someone else while I share these words? And I get
Mm,
very clouded in my thinking and second guessing my own experience. However, when I heard this devotional, being able to split that in two between the wounds and the scars, I'm thinking I shouldn't be ashamed of the story that I'm telling,
right.
because there will be days where those stories that I share will be from the scar that I have been able to heal.
Mm,
And hopefully this will be an encouragement, but I also need to learn to step back once in a while and approach what I'm saying with wisdom, so that whenever I'm processing maybe a wound that I didn't know existed will be hit, and I will speak out of hurt and aggression and defensiveness
mm,
without truly processing. So in the midst of all of this, thinking about it, I really was like, okay, God, help me not retreat back in doubt and in fear, that I would show up with every episode that I speak on. And
right.
but I also would not run too fast ahead of you. I would speak words of fear and bitterness and judgment and all of that. So really it gave me a very clear picture, which was very helpful. That's been my experience when being navigating our podcast journey with the question of, am I speaking out of a wound or a scar?
Right. And the thing is, when we pray for that wisdom and approach each topic of what we're trying to talk about, a lot of the times that wisdom is self-awareness, right?
Mm,
And there's so many times where as we're thinking of, different dumps that we want to talk about, we're having to call each other out on like, oof, let's think about that
yeah.
and where our heart is, right?
So
And
true.
sometimes maybe I'm not ready to talk about it and Yena
Mm-hmm.
is. And, we're both on our different
Mm-hmm.
healing journeys with certain topics. And just being able to check each other with that also has
Mm-hmm.
been helpful, and having an accountability partner of like, oof, I don't think we're ready to record that yet. Or let's give it a little bit of time and see if we can reapproach that with a clear perspective and it not coming from this wounded place, you
Yeah,
know?
it's so true. We definitely need those accountability pieces, especially when we run through ideas and we go through them. And a lot of times when we run through these, we're just expanding and putting more meat to our idea through our bullet points. And then we talk, and we get to a point where usually it's me getting really heated about it. And then at some point, Jessie goes, okay, that is not going to be an episode in the next couple years. But it's so
Like,
true.
yeah. Well, like sometimes if you guys haven't noticed in our episodes, we'll be like, moving on, because then we realize how much we've gone further than we thought we would. And we're like,
Exactly.
okay, this is becoming a rant and like it's turning into bitterness. Let's cut
Yep.
it there. We don't want to
We've hit
unpack
a
this
chord.
ugliness.
Of course, sometimes we want to be vulnerable and we want to show that we're still in the midst of it. But again, back to the wisdom piece, we don't want to ever throw arrows without knowing where it's gonna hit. Yeah.
Especially because, yes, we have a small platform right now, we have a couple listeners, but imagine if we had much more listeners and to think
Mm-hmm.
about them listening. Like this is basically out in the world. And so
Yeah.
to know that weight eventually of what that would mean, obviously when it comes to wounds and scars, like wounds, we need to be vulnerable and open about that in person, one to one in real life, yes.
Hmm.
But it's so much different from putting that out on the internet. So kind of balancing that has been
Yeah.
interesting because Yana and I do talk about our wounds and scars, in real life. And that kind of correlates to your next point is with our TCK experience. I mean, we came into it, both Yana and I, thinking that, all of our TCK experiences, our past stories and upbringings, oh, they're scars now. They're good. We're good. We've lived through that. But as we're unpacking it, we're realizing so much of it are still wounds that we have just not tried, like we have not addressed, and we
No.
have just shoved it under the rug or tried to put a band-aid on it and make it look cute and be like, okay, we're good now. We can talk about this. Honestly, I think a lot of TCKs and MKs can relate in that it might be easy for us to disguise our scars as being deep and having that be labeled as true vulnerability. Because when
Mm.
we talk to people and we're like having quote unquote deeper conversations, and people are like, oh my gosh, like, why are you such a deep thinker? And I'm like, yeah, I'm so deep. I mean, honestly, here thinking that I'm like sharing
Take
my
it back.
heart and like taking initiative to be vulnerable when really I'm just sharing scars that are so easy for me to talk about. But
Mm.
when it comes down to like, okay, what's on your heart now? What is actually eating at you slowly?
Ooh.
I will never reveal that. It is something that I have walls and walls and walls and walls up for me to even get there to talk about. And that is true vulnerability that I feel like a lot of TCKs and MKs avoid and hide and try to run away from.
Mm.
So again, that it's that misconception of making us feel like, oh, we're sharing our scars, so that's vulnerability. I mean, that's great, right? I feel
Yeah.
like we're quick to do that compared to most people, but those wounds are what's truly going to refine us and help us navigate through what we're really going through in life.
Mm.
And that's true communal living of and fellowship,
So true.
right? So, with that being said, Yana, how has that been for you too, as you think about, okay, am I quick to share my scars but not my wounds? Is
Mm.
that coming from pride? Is that coming from, just all the hurt that I have not healed from? Like what is that like for you?
Ooh. I was
Loaded
just
question.
I was just thinking how we always talk about this, Jessie and I, and also a lot of other TCK friends. We are we do such a good job sharing our quote unquote vulnerable side. We have like our go-to package deal.
And
This
our
is what,
stories.
yeah, and our stories. And we're like, we introduce ourselves, where we're from, and of course we go into like how that's impacted us, how that's made us grow and reflect on our spiritual life. And we are so good at making that nice
Cookie
and
cutter.
compact, cookie cutter.
Yes.
It's beautiful. It's just right on our pockets, kind of like our little business card. We take it out, hand it over, done. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, this girl is so mature and beautiful and amazing. And I'm like, I know. And then once in a while, someone actually sits you down and is like, okay, so what's on your mind right now? Girl, don't.
Instant shutdown.
Instant shutdown, instant done. I'm sorry. What? You are crossing my boundaries. Not real boundaries. It's just straight defensiveness, you know? And
Really though.
yeah, and you would think now as you enter adulthood, those little things that happened maybe when I was 8 years old or 12 would not sting this much, but it still does. Someone would
Mhm.
mention something about homeschooling, for example, and saying, "Oh my God, that was so easy. That must have been so nice doing nothing." And you just sit there like, "Oh yeah, let's not mention the isolation and the depression and the judgment that came with, yeah, no. See, look, already triggered. No one said anything. And the thing is, it's like, okay, take a breath, because that's not at all what they meant. They were trying to, it just came off like that, and you took it as a attack, but in reality they wanted you to reflect on the blessing of being flexible and really tuning in with how I will come across, not in a pretentious way, but in a way that I would not use my wounds to hurt another. And so, really, really thinking about that because I need to, yes, approach it with caution, but also not approach it with this jaded heart, you know. So that has been still very much on the forefront of my mind whenever meeting people and whenever they know now, like, oh, I'm an MK, I'm a TCK, and what that narrative brings. Or even if they don't know and they talk about things very lightly and maybe something out of the blue hits me and I think, oh my gosh, retreat, Mayday. That has been, I think, will always be an ongoing journey.
I was gonna say it's an totally an ongoing journey, like especially with MKTCKs. Wounds are you need to show your wounds like that. Goodbye. Like we get defensive, and I like how you said how like because I don't want my wounds to hurt other people.
Mm,
That's mostly how we hurt other people.
so
It's
true.
because there are wounds that we are constantly trying to hide, constantly trying to not address and push it to the sidelines and just never bring it up ever again. And it's like,
Mm.
no, those wounds are still bleeding. And there is
Ooh!
only so much that we can do. How are you not going to address that?
No.
Are you just going to let that bleed for the rest of your life? But we're just our prideful selves are like, no, it's all good. It's just a little cut. Like we're good.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. So I'm feeling it. Yeah, as we process this more, I'm like, dang, that is so real. And
Mm-hmm.
it kind of relates to Yena and I, our most recent trip of me visiting Yena. I mean, it was such a good time seeing her family and meeting her friends and yada yada.
Mm,
But we both came out of it feeling so mentally heavy because Yena and I reached a point in our friendship too where we're having to share and show those wounds. And
mm,
that is not something that I personally am used to in my
yeah.
friendships. I'm used to sharing the scars and processing it and
Mm,
reflecting. But for Yena to sit, for me to expose my wounds and to sit there and to have Yena give me loving and constructive and good feedback was so painful for me. Like there were so many moments where I just wanted to retreat and I
mm,
just wanted to pull away and kind of put my guard up and shut down. And I sitting through that and Yana doing the same too, because and also me
yeah.
sharing my opinion on Yana's wounds and knowing that we trust each other
Yeah.
and that we still love each other and just walking through that in the past couple days that we were in person together was so good, but also just uncomfortable and painful, but good. What do you
Yes,
think? Lots to take
exactly.
away from that trip.
Yes. So Jessie arrived Saturday and we were like, oh my God, this will be so fun. And we hit barely Monday and we both were like, what the heck? Why do I just want to take a nap? 2047. And I think in hindsight, I realized it's because we had to sit through just the heaviness of what was happening real time and the fear and the doubts and just all of the ugliness and also just the sadness that kind of were overwhelming us that moment.
Right.
And we were sharing that without having processed anything. We were processing it there then.
Which
And
is not what we do.
not what we do. And I like to, not to be pretentious, but I like to refine it so that I'm not just spewing out things that I'm going to regret talking about. And here I was, nothing refined, nothing clear cut, no, just pure, unadulterated doubt and fears being on the table and saying, Jessie, help me walk through this was something I never thought I'd ever reach. And just
Right.
thinking, I was both so in awe in a kind of scared way, but also in a way that I was so proud of myself that I've come to a point where I could trust another person this much.
Mm,
And her
yeah. Appreciate
vice
that.
versa, right?
Right? Or maybe
Right?
we still have wounds that we're hiding from each other. We
Hey,
definitely
but I think that's
do.
okay. I think that's okay
It's
because we're
it's a
we're
slow.
learning. Yeah. It's a slow
It's a
reveal.
slow exactly. I mean, you guys can tell, like, I've just been so blessed to have someone to walk through that with in a
Mm,
safe space. And I
same.
wonder, yeah, with even with you guys, I wonder, like, who in your life are you able to start showing those wounds to?
Mm,
And I'm not saying like display it to the whole world and post it on social media and all that stuff. I'm saying, where is your safe place?
mm,
Where can you start challenging yourself to be in vulnerability in showing those wounds? And what are moments where you feel like you can step into boldness and share your scars and inspire and encourage other people that might be going through the same thing that you did? I mean,
mm,
even when I made that Instagram post on my birthday a while back, like those were scars that I was willing to show, which
mm,
is also something I don't do, but I was able to do because I felt comfortable enough and healed from it enough to do that, you know? So obviously there's a time and place for to share your wounds, to show your wounds, to share your scars, to show your scars. And I just challenge you guys to think about that with your own life and to think about people in your life that you can start doing that with, because that's true communal fellowship. And that's what produces further growth and further togetherness as
yes.
you're living in Christ. So, woo.
Even that statement brings up
Ranted.
a lot of questions in my mind because everyone who's listening probably is thinking what I'm thinking. It's like, but what if? That what if question probably came into your brain. Challenge that, really challenge
Yeah.
that, and think, no, don't think about the 500 people that will not accept you. Think about the one person that might see you. And so,
Mm,
and
huge.
anyway, whew, this was so good. I think even just talking about it and recording this has brought to light how far we've come and how much God has been working in our hearts and in our lives and in our relationships and our wounds, and how we approach that and being aware of those wounds has been a game changer. And acknowledging we have wounds has been a game changer. I really hope that all of you would take time to maybe reflect on one of those wounds and think, okay, that's there. And just not even thinking about how to fix it. Don't do that. Just acknowledge it's there and pray that this will no longer control your life. Yes.
Well
Thank
said.
you guys for listening to this. I really hope you guys will feel encouraged and challenged to look at those things. Anyways, please follow us on Spotify and YouTube and our Instagram channel. Not what? Instagram page. Thank you, as always, for supporting us and loving on us and listening to us. Cannot wait to share more on our next episode. Bye.
Bye.